My name is Hlengiwe Dube. I'm based at the Center for Human Rights. The Center for Human Rights is at the University of Pretoria as a Department of the Law faculty, and we are an academic institution. We are also an NGO focusing on research and advocacy on different aspects of human rights on the continent. And I work specifically on issues of expression, information, and the intersection between technology and human rights on the continent. I'll speak to the role that AI can play in monitoring and preventing human rights abuses during electoral processes in Africa. And before I get to the specifics of that, I just want to say that on the continent, we are at different stages of embracing technologies in all the socio-economic and political spectrum, including the context of elections. And as we speak also on artificial intelligence and in the context of elections, we also have to recognize that there is also the glaring digital divide that we see on the continent. There's a large population that still is yet to access technologies. As we having this convening right now virtually is because of the privilege that we have to accessing digital technologies. There are some, a lot actually on the continent that do not have this privilege, that don't have this kind of access. And when we talk about issues on artificial intelligence, it even becomes more abstract to a large segment of the population because they have not managed to get to the level that we are right now, whether it's the internet or other digital technologies. So that has to be acknowledged. So specifically on the role that AI can play in monitoring and preventing human rights abuses during our elections and on the continent. I mean, there is really, like our colleague has already alluded to, what an opportunity that we see when it comes to using the AI and other emerging technologies. For instance, AI can be used in monitoring in real time, which is sometimes something that we struggle with on the continent. But if we can use AI-driven tools that can also offer real-time monitoring during electoral processes, and this can be helpful because it can analyze live feeds from cameras or sensors at polling stations. It also, when you are able to do real-time monitoring, it means that in real time or within reasonable time, you can detect irregularities such as, voter intimidation and fraud. So, it's we know that our elections on the continent, they are riddled with electoral fraud. Most of our, challenges around elections or arguments around elections center around electoral fraud. And so AI algorithms can help in detecting anomalies in voting patterns or the registration processes as well, which can be indicative of fraud, or it can be indicative of other forms of manipulation. And also, using AI technologies as well can be very useful when it comes to processing vast amounts of data. Elections are, it's also a data-driven process. It's also a data-intensive process, and we can take advantage of, the use of AI in data analysis and also pattern recognition. And vast amounts of data can be analyzed from social media, from news outlets, and also from other sources. From this data, you can analyze, the patterns that are indicative of human rights abuses. And you can also, using those technologies, monitor hate speech, misinformation, disinformation, and violence associated with campaigns. We know that during elections, this is a very heated time, it's a very intense time. And in terms of the information ecosystem or in the information space, there is a lot that happens there. The information space gets very, I don't know what phrase I can use, but what I'm trying to say is that, within that context of a very heated or an intense environment, we can make use of, artificial intelligence to manage or to address issues of disinformation and misinformation. And this can be important to key stakeholders in elections, whether it's the electoral management body that has been charged with the administration of elections, or it's the political parties as well, or civil society organizations working in the context of elections, or election observers and election monitors as well. So that's another area that we can harness this technology, or this artificial intelligence technology. And also sentiment analysis as well is another very important area associated with elections, where you can use AI to analyze public sentiment or the public discourse on especially on social media, to gauge the mood. The potential for unrest as well can be dictated, and this is helpful for key stakeholders to anticipate or to address issues before they escalate. When it comes to observing and monitoring, that's an important element of elections, which can benefit quite immensely from the use of AI by embracing AI tools as well. And this can provide the observers with data insights and manage and also analyzing large volumes of data. We know that they are an important part of judging the integrity of the elections or the credibility of them. Their voice is very important. So with these emerging technologies, they can take advantage of that and mainstream technologies into the work that they do. But the challenge becomes accessibility, which I've already alluded to in the context of the digital divide, that there's need to improve accessibility for marginalized communities, and ensuring that whilst this AI technologies are deployed in the electoral context, they are not only deployed to those that are privileged to access them, but taking into account marginalized groups, or what we call underserved communities, to ensure that there is an equal reach. I've also been asked to address issues of African governments in ensuring that AI technologies used in elections do not infringe on the rights to privacy or the right to freedom of expression. So we have already established that it's beneficial to use artificial intelligence in the context of an electoral environment. But in that process, so in that deployment, it is possible that certain rights like privacy, like freedom of expression, can be infringed upon. And in order to ensure that the deployment of these technologies doesn't jeopardize or undermine those rights, it's important for our governments to develop and enforce comprehensive data protection laws. If we look at the continent, we find that not all countries have data protection laws in place, and those that have them do not adequately address or tailored for this dispensation that we are in right now of using artificial intelligence. So there is need to come up with very clear legal frameworks that are on data protection, that address issues of automation, issues of broader artificial intelligence issues. But the laws should also very clearly address issues like your data collection, your storage, your usage. And the laws should also ensure that there is compliance. The laws should be drafted in such a manner that they are compliant with international best practices that are able to effectively protect data, user data, for instance. What we have on the continent currently, is that we have data protection laws, but where we are lacking is the issue of implementation. Not only implementation, but also updating the laws to meet the dispensation of this advanced technological development that we find ourselves in. So in as much as we have a number of countries that have data protection legislation, there is need to also ensure that the legislation is also up to date. In deploying these technologies like AI in the context of elections, we should ensure that our duty bearers are transparent, or they operate with transparency. And this is disclosing how, in deploying these technologies, how is data going to be collected? How is it going to be processed? As well as, the algorithms as far as decision-making processes are concerned. So these policies also having been put in place, they should be accessible to the public in a language that is understood by the public, regardless of who they are, and taking into account vulnerable and marginalized communities as well, and also issues of inclusion. The next issue that I want to address is that of ensuring that when AI technologies are deployed in the context of elections, there is a requirement, or there is a need, or it would be very helpful to conduct regular audits and also impact assessments. What is out there? What is it doing? How is it helping us? Are there any gaps? Where can it be strengthened? So these regular audits on AI systems and impact assessments can be very helpful in identifying and mitigating any risks that are associated with privacy, risks that are associated with freedom of expression. And so you are in a position to better respond when you regularly conduct or assess how your technology is being deployed, or what the impact is on ground, or identify any gaps or areas that need strengthening. Also very important is to consider the issue of accountability. In as much as talking about transparency, it should go hand in hand with accountability, where our governments should, as duty bearers, they should ensure that they establish very clear accountability mechanisms for AI deployment in the context of elections. And this speaks to setting up structures that is independent oversight mechanisms, within the structures that we already have. In some instances, it may be possible to come up with new structures, but in some instances, it might not be possible to establish a new structure. So this can be embedded in the existing structures, but ensuring that there is independent oversight, which will be responsible for reviewing the use of AI and addressing the issues that are related to privacy complaints, misuse of data, or any other relevant infringements on human rights. With AI, we know that AI is, very advanced, especially when it comes to data collection. But the data collection should be kept within the confines of the data protection principles, specifically the principle on minimization, data minimization, where, like our colleagues say, there has to be a human element. The human element will be very important in this regard, in ensuring that the technologies are not collecting data unnecessarily, but only collect data and process the minimum amount of data which is necessary for the intended purpose of elections. So the government should establish mechanisms to ensure that there is no misuse of data, or there is no over collection of data beyond the intended scope. Also, the issue of awareness also is very important and is largely lacking. I was involved recently in a training on access to information in the context of foreign investment. And one of the questions that I asked our participants in that training was whether, beyond themselves, just looking at their family, whether there was anyone else in the family who knew about the access to information law in that particular country. And it turned out that colleagues that were attending the meeting knew about the information, because this is linked to the work that they do. If they had not been doing that particular job or that particular work, they were not going to know about the access or even care about it. So we have an issue of having our legal frameworks very much decorated with these frameworks, with these instruments, with these laws, policies, which are not known, which are not used. So there is need to raise awareness, educating key stakeholders on elections, but also generally citizens about their rights in the context of AI and elections as well. And that's very important to promote awareness about how technology works, about what it means to their rights, and what it means generally to their participation in the electoral context. Over and above, it will be to mitigate all these challenges associated with human rights violations in the context of AI deployment. It will be important to adopt ethical guidelines on AI in the context of elections. Develop the guidelines, adhere to, and ensure that their deployment adheres to the guidelines in that context, including such principles such as your fairness, such as your transparency, such as your accountability. This all, in a nutshell, will help ensure that in as much as, we are deploying AI in the context of elections, we are also acknowledging that there could be instances where, these can also facilitate the infringement of human rights, but also, as what can we do in that context to mitigate the infringement of human rights? In the context where there have been infringements, what avenues are there for redress in such a manner that we benefit from the use of AI imaging technologies, but also being mindful of the risks that are associated with the development or deployment of AI in the context of elections. Let me stop here. Thank you very much.